Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I am Mike, a la Filmboy24. Today, we're going to review and break down this beautiful Bolex camera. So, before I get started, a couple of quick things. If you saw my video a couple of weeks ago regarding the new Ektachrome 100D, you'll see the issues that I had with it and sort of the mess that came of it. Well, just a quick update. I did email Kodak and I got a response back from them, and they've been stellar in customer service. I was recently sent overnight 2 fresh cartridges of my favorite film all time, which is the Vision 350D. The customer service specialist manager that I've been dealing with back and forth in email has been phenomenal. He's given me some tips and some things that I really should share with you, like do not beat on your cartridge before you put it in your camera. All it does is start to unwind the feed reel inside the cartridge, thus making more contact with the inside of the cartridge, thus creating more friction in your Super 8 cartridge. Not good. Less friction, good. You also want to make sure when you take it out of the refrigerator or the freezer or a controlled environment like that, you give it a little time to sort of thaw out and come out to or come up to room temperature before you use it. I've also been asked to sort of do some tests for them in the future regarding some upgrades that they're making to these 100D cartridges. They are aware of a few of the issues that I talked to them about. So I have graciously accepted their offer, and I will be testing some of their new improved 100D cartridges through a myriad of my cameras. One other thing, the last video that I posted was an attempt at some Vision 2 250D daylight film with my Arri S 16mm camera. What I didn't realize was when I posted that, which was footage only, that YouTube completely disabled the comments simply because I had my young daughter and she was featured in most of that film, which I know now is a no-no when it relates to the comments. Not that there would have been a lot of comments anyway, however, that's why the comments were disabled. I didn't do it, YouTube did, and I can't say that I disagree with them. All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to review, go over the features, and break down this Bolex 150 Super 8 movie camera. It's a very robust, could be used to maybe doubled as a weapon. It's completely made of steel or metal of some sort. I guess I shouldn't say steel. Everything on it is steel with the exception of the front handle grip cover, which is like that Bakelite plastic material. It weighs about 2.5 pounds. I have to say, as far as aesthetics go, I love the color. This is sort of outside the Bolex norm. They're usually in the more sort of the black and silver look, like their H series cameras, and well, a lot of their cameras were black plastics. This to me is the more modular, sort of reminds me of the old school Panavision cameras with the gray and black design, which are absolutely gorgeous, as I'm sure you agree with me. Except for you, I know you don't agree, but maybe you do. This particular camera is the first in a little series of cameras that Bolex did in the mid-60s all the way up to the early 70s. This was their Super series. They started with the Bolex 150, they then progressed to the Bolex 155, and finished it off with the Bolex 160. Now with each progressing model, you got a few more features. This is very basic. The 155 included an upgraded lens system, which allowed you to focus macro about an inch away from the lens. It included some modifications to the viewfinder, and a couple other little things. The 160 series included the ability to shoot at 24 frames per second, as well as a couple other beautiful modifications like zoom lenses, etc., etc. But we're here to talk about this one. This particular camera that's in my hand was built in 1966 per Bolex collector website based on the serial number. These cameras were made in 66, 67, and 68. And they made this series all the way through, I believe, 1972. So, with that in mind, these cameras are over 50 years old. So with that, you want to try to find them in good condition. These aren't that difficult to find, and when you do, expect to pay somewhere between $30 and $75, depending on condition and whether it works or not. And there is no such thing as untested camera or not tested camera. That's simply a ruse that a lot of sellers on particular online auction websites like to use. That's their verbiage for I put batteries in the camera, pulled the trigger, and nothing happened. Stay away from untested or not tested cameras. That typically means they don't work. There are a few occasions where the seller truly doesn't know how to put 4 AA batteries in a camera. Probably stay away from that seller as well. All right, let's get into what this camera is capable of. How about 18 frames per second? That is the only filming speed for the 150 series. It is capable of single frame, however you need an accessory pack that mounts to the bottom of the lens in order to be able to do that. So it doesn't natively shoot. There's nowhere that I could start shooting single frame right now without the accessory. This camera also takes the standard Super 8 cartridge. And it does it in sort of an unconventional way, or a way that you probably aren't used to in Super 8 cameras. Some of them go pushed into the back, and most of them, a door opens on the side and it goes in. Well, this has this sort of this swanky old school magazine look. There's a little release push right here on the side. You push that in and you pop it open. And there is your control center, or at least where your gate and your cartridge goes, as well as your batteries. These cameras natively, with the pin system that reads the carts, are able to properly meter 25 ISO up to 160 ISO film cartridges. Anything over 200 ISO, I would not recommend using in this camera. And the reason they did that is because when these cameras were manufactured, 25 to 160, well, that's all that was available. So there wasn't any need to continue to go on, 250 and 320 and 400 and 500. There is a workaround, and I'll get to that in a minute, but it's not that simple. So the gate of this camera is actually facing down. So to insert the cartridge, the film, this has already been used. I'll show you the result of this in a few minutes. Insert the cartridge in. You want to make sure it's behind this plate here, and you snap it in. That's it. That's all there is to it. You close, and you film. This camera operates on 1, 2, 3, 4 AA type batteries. I happen to have 4 AA Eneloop rechargeable batteries right here. Let's take the cartridge out. Let's put the batteries in. Now, as I'm sure you know, rechargeable batteries are 1.2 volt, not 1.5 like the alkaline series AA batteries. They work just fine. I've used them in just about every Super 8 camera I've ever had, and they work just splendid. It's not a overly loud camera, not an overly quiet camera. I'd say it's intermediate. But if I had to pick one side or the other, it's more, I would push it more to the quiet side than I would to the loud side. I just love the way it sounds. Very smooth running camera. Also has your button cell holder down here at the bottom. Now, if I had a complaint about this particular camera system, it would be in the batteries. These batteries here, easy to take out. These batteries, not easy to take out. The batteries here, the button cell, which is originally two of the old school Mercury 1.35 volt, like Mallory PX13, I believe they were, batteries. And the way they have it is you unscrew the holder, and when you lift it up, well, the batteries go in it sort of upside down. So they just kind of sit on top there. It's a funky system. To do it properly, you really have to turn the camera this way, screw the holder back on. I don't know, it's tricky to get them in there, but once they're in there, they're set. To get these last two batteries out, kind of got to bang it, and they'll tilt forward, and then you pull them out. Definitely not a deal breaker, just a little wonky. Now, back to these. 1.35 batteries are not overly common now. They do still make them. There's a company called Winecell that makes a 1.35 volt. I think it's a 625 battery. It's called, and they're about $6 or7 a piece. So if you invest in those, that's kind of where you want to be. What I'm using right now are 1.5 volt PX 625 batteries. They work. They throw your meter off a little bit, maybe by a stop. For me, it isn't enough to really worry about. If you want to get serious about it, get the Winecells. So the easiest way to do this, positive facing down, boom, drop one, drop two, take the camera, and you see what you have to do, you have to sort of get it into that, flip it into there. You could turn the camera upside down, but the lid's going to want to close. So you just carefully, there we go. Pop it in, screw the cover on, you're good to go. Your 85 filter is controlled by this little switch here, right inside the film compartment. Has the sunlight and the daylight bulb in there. Now I will say this, if you are using a daylight balanced film, such as this black and white film that I used, doesn't matter what you have the switch on, once you put your cartridge in, it will disengage the filter, regardless. Now once you take it out, if the filter is engaged, if it's on the little sunlight, it disengages it. Once you take it out, it re-engages the filter. So in other words, it doesn't matter what this switch is on, cartridge takes priority. Now, the lens has this handy dandy little cover which doubles as a lens shade. You pull out and twist down, and it's a lens cover. The lens, 8.5 to 30 millimeter f1.9. Nice little lens, 3.5 to 1. And to adjust the focal length, you have this knurled dial on the side here. This is your zoom in and out. Also has a handle. Now, per Bolex, they say the easiest way to get smooth zooms is to simply grab onto the lever and place your finger kind of where that groove is and do it all like with your whole hand. I could definitely see that it helps because I'm a little, yeah, that works. Focus, focus, focus. Here, right on the side. Very short focal range. Now, this camera will focus from about 32 inches to infinity. The 155 model will focus from about 1 inch all the way, I don't know why I'm doing that, but over there, all the way to that side of the house, infinity. One thing the 150 model did not do was put your focus distances on the knob itself. They put it on the other side of the camera. A little odd. So when you turn, I'm turning the focus dial. Don't know if you can see the knob moving. I'll do a close-up. On the newer models, it's actually on the dial itself. So you don't have to sort of do both. But it is in a handy spot. Handy dandy spot, if I might say so myself. They did it so you can use your thumb to focus. See here? Look at that. Look at that. Ooh, ah. Right here, just above the focusing knob, is the film plane mark. So if you're measuring from your subject, you want to stop your measurement right at that little circle there with the line through it. That's your that's your film line, your film plane. Also has a little holder here for a strap. The eyepiece has an interesting little diopter adjustment wheel here. Pretty much the same as most cameras, but with this one, the eyepiece actually springs back. See there? So for people like me that are farsighted, and I can't see things really close up, you're going to want the viewfinder out pretty far back. So to do that is you hold it out with one hand. It's going to be hard to do, but let me see if I can get it here. Pull back, and then you want to turn this dial to the appropriate length. Twist this back in, and there's a pin on the tip of this knurled dial, and there's a little accepting hole on the inside of the viewfinder of the eye cup here. Hear it? Snaps into place. Now, if you are a lefty, see, I use my right eye into the viewfinder. If you are a lefty, you take this, you pull it out, and it snaps in on the other side. And what this does is it simply brings the lensing inside the viewfinder farther or closer away. So it allows you to focus your eye on the ground glass inside your camera, so that when you focus the camera itself, it's actually in focus. Does that make any sense? This is an auto exposure, fully auto exposure camera. There is one workaround. They have an auto exposure lock button right under here, right next to the trigger. What that means is, if I'm looking at you and my meter says I need to shoot you at 5.6, the camera wants to meter you at, let's say, 8, what I have to do is I have to point the camera at something a little bit darker so that the internal meter brings that diaphragm to 5.6, hold that button in, bring it back to you while I'm still holding the button in, then I can film you. And it stays on 5.6 as long as I hold my finger on the button. As soon as you let go, the auto kicks back in, and in this particular example, would kick it back to F8. It's better than not having any manual adjustment whatsoever. The trigger, right here, boing, 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 has a safety. Flip it up. Now you can't boing, boing it. Underneath the trigger is a cable release socket for continuous filming from a cable. You know what a cable release socket is. Goes in right in there. It's recommended that you leave the trigger up in the locked position when you're not filming so you don't accidentally film. Kind of like it's recommended that you cover the viewfinder if you are shooting a scene and your eye is not up to the eyepiece. Light gets in, could fog your film. There's an accessory area underneath the lens where you can snap on, like they make a titler, or the single frame attachment goes on under here. There is also a slot right underneath the lens where a little filter holder slides in, and you can put little round, I think, Series 6 filters in front of the lens. The last couple of things that I want to mention are right up here on top. You have your battery check switch. Boom, boom, back and forth. The tall battery is the camera's main drive batteries, those 4 AA batteries. When you push that and hold it and look through the viewfinder at the same time, the little needle at the bottom should be all the way to the left. When you go this direction, you're checking the small button cell, the exposure batteries. Same deal, the little needle should be all the way to the left. If it's not, change your batteries. This little window here that looks similar to a clock. Remember, kids, the old school clocks? No, they don't. This is your footage counter. It has 24 little hash marks on it. Well, hash marks and or dots. Every other one is a hash mark and a dot. Each hash mark and or dot represents about 8 1/3 feet of film. One complete rotation from top to top clockwise is one 50-foot cartridge of film. When you open the cover and close it, it resets your film counter. Be conscious of that. Know how much film is left. Inside the viewfinder, there is a little needle that starts up top. When your film has fully been exposed, it will bring itself down into your viewfinder range. And I don't like that, because that means the film's gone. The bottom, 1/4-20, tripod mount, very standard. The side, This is a proprietary, sort of a shoe mount, but it was there for a 650 watt light that Bolex made, specifically designed for these cameras. Now, I don't know if you know, but 650 watts and a tiny little halogen bulb, the way they used to do it, that's like carving off a piece of the sun and setting it next to these cameras. I have had quite a few of them, and let me tell you, they are hot. Yeah, they're hot. But anyway, it was kind of neat, this little shoe here. You could put the 650 watt light on here. And the cool thing about this was, when you'd put that 650 watt light on there, when you'd flip the light on, it would disengage that 85 filter out of there, because you're blaring out 650 watts of tungsten light. As soon as you turn the light off, boom, filter back in place. Let's talk about the film. It can really only meter 25 to 160 ISO film. So what did I shoot? I shot this, a roll of PlusX 7265. It's an expired roll, but daylight balanced 100 ISO. So I figured that'd be perfect for this camera. Easily set up to meter 100 ISO black and white film, because they had that back in the day when these were made. What I didn't realize was, you see, I develop everything as a black and white negative. I don't like doing reversal processing because I'm lazy when it comes to that, and I don't want to go through the extra steps. So when you do process this film, or most all of this reversal film, as a negative, you're always supposed to compensate and overexpose. So this film really shouldn't have been metered at 100 ISO, which is what the camera likes to do to it. Should have been done at about 25 ISO in order for the negative to look right. So I shot it auto, everything, and everything was grossly underexposed. I was able to fix a little bit of it in post, and I'm going to show you a clip of it in 1 second. I highly recommend that you shoot stuff like 50D in this camera, which I did previously on my 10 camera test. Here's a little short clip of the 50D I shot with this camera. It's 5 seconds long. You could also shoot this 7266, this Tri-X. This meters well in these cameras. It's 200 ISO. If you're going to have it developed as a reversal, either of these or any of this film, if you're going to have it developed properly as a reversal, this will do fine. If you're going to do it as a negative, well, you might want to consider using your auto exposure lock button and overexposing this by a couple of stops. You don't have to worry about it on 50D. I would probably not go higher than 200T in your color negative stocks. 100D, the Ektachrome, works really well in this camera. With that, I am going to show you the results of this. Now, there is a vertical scratch on the right side of the film. I'm aware of that. I believe that happened when I was pulling it from the cartridge. Here's the couple minutes of film that I shot with this camera right here. not too bad. I processed it as a black and white negative in HC110. I scanned it on my RetroScan Universal Mark I. And again, when you render a 18 frame per second film with a 30 frame per second video, this one right here, the one you're watching, expect a little frame blending. Yeah, that's probably what you saw. Guys, if you like videos like this, I ask one thing and one thing only. Headbutt that like button for me. If you don't want to headbutt it and break your screen, punch it. I don't care. It's free to do. It helps me more than you know. Subscribe. Leave me a comment. I'm going to make some more fun, exciting, I'm going to make some more review videos on Mike's Grayscale. I give this an 8 out of 10. I love this camera. Love it, love it, love it. 8 out of 10. Yeah. A little bit heavy. Batteries are a little wonky. And it could shoot at 24 frames per second because that's my favorite. And until the very next time that I see all your lovely faces, I'll see you on the next go around.